Hi guys, it's Dutch Reefer here and welcome to this latest Focus Friday video. First of all, I would like to thank you all for your overwhelming response to my last video. I really liked reading your comments and really appreciate the way you responded, so thanks for that. I really do appreciate that. This video is shot in a different video mode. It's called super stable mode, so I'm curious to see how that works out. I'm also using my gimbal, so it should be uber super stable in theory. And I also noticed that the colors look slightly more realistic this way, so that might be an added bonus. The only downside is that there's no 4K resolution, so you'll have to make do with 1080p. But I hope that by having it in super stable, that will mean something. And otherwise, next week it will be back to the old settings. And I will also be receiving a different phone in a few weeks, which is a Samsung Galaxy S10. I've also already had very good experiences with Samsung Galaxy phones and my Reef, so perhaps that will also fix a bit of the color hue problems, saturation problems that I had over the past few videos. Let's see. First of all, I want to start by telling you something about 3 new corals that I bought at a conference last week. So, as you might be aware, I live in the Netherlands, hence the name Dutch Reefer, and there was a conference called MACE. It's a European conference, and in Dutch it's called Vivarium. It's actually a big conference which also covers a lot of freshwater fish and reptiles and other kind of creatures, but also a lot of salt water. So I bought some new corals. For example, or one of the 3 corals that I bought is this Hydnophora, which you can see right here. It's a branching coral. It's actually somewhat of a split between an LPS and an SPS. It has a stony skeleton, but then again the tissue is pretty soft, so it's somewhat of a hybrid coral. I'm actually not sure how it's classified, but I'd call it a hybrid. So these corals, I've had one before in my previous tank. Unfortunately, somehow it died at a certain moment in time. So, that's a pity, but yeah, sometimes that happens. This one is new. It has a large encrusting base, which is nice, and it already has quite some branches going on. So very happy that I found this piece. It's also pretty large for a frag, so that helps since the tank is pretty large itself as well. 2 other corals that I bought are somewhat smaller. It's this red Rhodactis ear. I'm not even sure it's a Rhodactis actually, but it's an ear, as we like to call them. It's red, and it has some pink dots, as you can see. Then behind that is the other coral that I was referring to, and that's a Recordea. And I liked it especially because it had a very distinct color difference between the edges, which are orange, and then the mouth, which are bright green, and the part in between, which is somewhat of a dark green. So really like the way that one looked. So those are 3 new corals, which in the larger scheme of things look very small, except maybe for the Hydnophora. But let's see them grow, and just patience is key. Something else I did is that I broke up a ClariSea coral. For example, in the middle you can see the one of the pieces that I broke off. It had a very rough time during my tank migration, so about half of the heads died off. So I broke it into pieces, recovered all the living heads, and just glued them on the reef at various places. So here's one. Then there's also one right here in the middle. There is another one right here at the top, and then there's one more over here. So this is a ClariSea, also called a trumpet coral, and they come in various colors. And the last one is here. This one is a bit of a half one. Let's see how it recovers. These yellow ones are also called ClariSea. The same species, different color, and also somewhat of a different structure, but they have the same way of branching out and creating new heads. So that was one of the coral changes that I did. I also moved my Montipora to the top here because it started losing its color and it started looking pretty bad. So I moved it here, and it seems to be doing better than before. Still, it could use a little more light. I think in general my tank could use a little more light, but that's also, of course, up to the amount of lights that I have above my tank, which is just 4 80-watt bulbs at the moment, and of course also the 4 LED pads that are inside the Giesemann Aurora. But still, it's on the lower edge of sufficient. So I would prefer adding some more lights in on a medium term. For now, it will have to make do. So these two Alveopora are also some of the more recent corals that I added. I like them a lot. They look a bit similar to the Goniopora, except they have their polyps have less tentacles, as you might call them. If you compare it to Goniopora, which is beneath, you can see that it has a lot more tentacles at the end of the polyps, while the Alveopora typically have a lot less. So it looks a bit cleaner that way. Then there's this Cellularia dura. I've had this for a very long time. I bought this as a very small frag, and it has been growing ever since. And well, it's right here at the top. I've noticed that it looks a lot better if you put it at the top of the tank. At the bottom, it will do less well and even perish a bit. So that's I was a bit surprised. So it's doing a lot better up in high lights. Here's a coral that I've got to control. These zoanthus. There's various names for them. Let's just call them pink zoanthus without giving them any fancy names. They are spreading quite rapidly across the tank. So they started out here, but they already moved here, as you can see, and they already moved in between the Ricordea over there, and also behind that. So they are rapidly spreading. And they need to be controlled in order to not spread across the entire tank. This Montipora right here has been here from pretty much the start, and while it had a bit of trouble adapting at first, it's doing very well now. So it has about doubled in size ever since I got it, and I really like it because it's so bright green. You rarely see that, so yeah, that's why I like this one in particular. And a coral that I've also had for a very long time, and also in this exact same spot, actually two corals, are these green star polyps, which are on the back of the overflow box, or actually at the front of the overflow box. And yeah, it's always been my philosophy to add this to the back of the tank. Well, since this is now the back of my tank, since it's a peninsula, this is the new way it looks, and well, it has been doing really well since a couple of weeks, months. It took a bit of time adapting, but now it looks great. Cephastrea still has to adapt a little bit, but it's also adapting quite nicely, and well, that, yeah, so thanks for watching again. We're already reaching the 10-minute mark again, so I'll leave it at that for now, and I want to wish you a good weekend. Bye bye.